Well, let's see.
Anybody heard from Betsy by any chance? I know she's at the ER.
Yeah, she said that she was not going to be here tonight.
Yeah, okay.
And so same with Manley. He said he had the second COVID shot today, or first one or something, and had a bad reaction. Yeah, so we're a little bit, we'll get to this in a second here. We barely have a quorum. There's gonna be 3 of us here, which is a quorum, but we may make some decisions about what we're gonna cover without the full board. I'll give another minute here.
Bill, the meeting minutes are not ready, just so you know.
Well, we have 2 of them, don't we?
Nope, just one, last planning board meeting, the 7th.
Oh. Then I pulled up the wrong ones. So those were distributed?
No, I haven't finished it.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, so we're all up to date on those.
Yeah.
Until we get those. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Good. Okay, it's 6:32 according to my phone. So I'll call the meeting to order of the South Berwick Planning Board, April 21st. So let's call the roll, and there are only 3 of us here tonight. So Jeff Minahan, raise your hand. He's there. Hirschkoff, and me. Other 2 members have complications in their lives today and are not going to be here. So some of the issues, some of the stuff we need to talk about, we may want to wait for the full board to have discussions, but we can play that by ear as we go down through here. So there's no new minutes. We dealt with the March minutes last time, and the minutes from April 7th are still in preparation. So there's no new minutes to review. And we had approved other ones previously. I'll under public audience, does anybody have statements or that they want to make before we get going here? We're gonna take it now and keep it if it's brief. No one's okay. Everybody's listening. That's fine. Okay, Barbara Hopkins.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Will there be discussion at the end of the meeting regarding the ordinances up for discussion?
Sure, there'll be some. We'll play that
Okay.
by ear because we
All
have a short board tonight. We don't have our full membership, so we may want to wait for real meaty discussion until we have our full board next time. But we'll take some comments at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right. In terms of correspondence, we had a memo from Town Councilor Mallory Cook last week, and a letter from Greg Zinser last week regarding the marijuana issues. And there was an email that came in early enough from Carl Parson on Bennett Lot, and there was a couple other emails that came in. They aren't officially listed. One from Sandy Agrafiotis and one from Nancy Wetzel, I think, which I think were distributed to all the members. So that's out there. Just a note, we met last week in a workshop session with the town attorney, Phil Saucier from Bernstein Shore, and that was a very useful session regarding primarily the medical cultivation ordinance, which we'll get to at the end of tonight. But that we had a meeting last week on that, and that was useful. As many people who I see names are here listened in on that, so that was helpful and constructive. So we have 2 pieces of business tonight in terms of plans, and then we have discussion items regarding the marijuana issues. On the first new business, I think Chris Berry's here. There's Chris Berry. It's a topic that came before us, I don't know, some months ago, with the addition of a residential units or units at the back end of the Amy's Lane lot, 80 Main Street off of Pleasant Street. So with that, Chris, if you want to explain what you have new, and then we can talk to David about his comments, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, great. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Christopher Berry. I'm with Berry Surveying and Engineering, representing the O'Neills here this evening. We came before the board in December to discuss the potential development off from the backside of Amy's Lane. So just a little bit of reference, the front portion of this is the 9 units built out as Amy's Lane, the townhouse units that the applicants currently own. And they still own the remainder of the parcel that extends out beyond Pleasant Street, which is here at the bottom of the screen. And the prior meeting in December, we presented a plan that would propose 2 single-family detached units off the back of the existing slope that exists on site, and that would take access off from Pleasant Street. Based on the size of one of those structures, the applicants have felt that maybe just going with one single unit there is probably the most appropriate. And so the application that we have tonight is been sort of pared back from 2 down to 1. The board asked 2 pretty pointed and specific questions at that time. The first is relative to access, and I don't know that I have it in this PDF. I don't. But in the planning board's package, we provided a plan that shows.
Have to check out Congress's mortgage stimulus program.
Amy, can you find that person and mute them?
But what this program can save you.
Thank
Tap
you.
my profile picture or the Learn More button to
I don't know who
calculate.
that is.
I think it's Pat Robinson.
Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry. I thought I was muted.
We'll do it to you.
Is it gone? No, it isn't. Sorry.
All right, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No worries. So the first question was access, and so we provided we conducted our own research on the point of access from Pleasant Street to the project site, and what we found is that this site has deeded access to Pleasant Street. Pleasant Street, though the constructed end is here off the boundary line, the right-of-way actually extends down to our property. And that's ratified by both our deed as well as the 2 abutting deeds, which call for our boundary as an abutter, as well as the street, Pleasant Street as an abutter. And then part of that presentation to the board in their packages, I presented the former land surveying plan or boundary plan conducted by civil consultants, which also showed that that right-of-way extends to our boundary line. And so I think one of David's comments is that our plan, which is not finalized, needs to be updated and finalized to show the right-of-way of Pleasant Street and the extension of that to the boundary line, so it's not just this ambiguous area that we show now. And we fully understand that and are committed to doing that. The second piece of the information that the board really was interested in is we also provided at the former design review or sketch plan review a yield plan that was formally prepared by civil consultants. And just for the record, I have talked with Mr. Harmon and do have permission to use that information in my presentation to the board. And the board asked at that time if we could prove out by soil type and by loading type the number of units that we're proposing. And much like the Amy's Lane plan that required some soil modification to develop this site, we're proposing that the remainder of this site be modified and a small amount of square footage, about 6,000 square feet, be modified on the other side of the stream And therefore we would require a temporary DEP permit to cross over this stream, make those soil modifications, and then remove our proposed crossing. And that would get us the square footage that's required in a moderately well-drained soil type to develop this single-family home. Some of David's comments really relate to how Pleasant Street will continue to operate in the future. So as you might imagine right now, and I have not talked to DPW about this or the road commissioner, but I would imagine they come down to maintain Pleasant Street and probably pile snow here at the end. We're now going to have a driveway that takes access off from that in some way, shape, or form. And so a better place to position snow, likely on our property, should be worked out with the department heads as well as the road commissioner. And that would need to be provided through an easement on our site, which the applicants are happy to do, because quite frankly, they're not interested in having a pile of snow stacked up in their proposed driveway in the future. So it only makes sense that we work with staff and the road commissioner on that moving forward. One of the other comments that David brought up is the sort of the non-congruency of the Amy's Lane site versus our proposed single-family site. The applicants would actually propose this as a modification to site plan, but also as a subdivision. And they would do what is known as a condo subdivision around this unit so that it is part of its own entity. This unit would be either managed separately or sold separately through the Condo Conversion Act. And that's how that would be managed, I guess, moving forward. So with that, I think David did a pretty good job of summarizing where we started and where we'd like to be, and some of the questions that the planning board would likely ask as part of the proceedings here tonight.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'll start with Jeff or Hershey. Any questions? I have a couple, but I'll wait.
None at this time right now.
Yeah, Hershey's got her hand up. But you got it muted. There you go.
I just would actually echo what David raised, the possibility of just, subdividing and creating a different parcel. Is that not preferable or just not worth it? Or, since it's rental property, it will never be sold, I would think that'd be a lot less complicated. Or do you not meet the dimensional requirements that he, asks you to look into?
Yeah, we likely would not meet the dimensional requirements. And so the other form of subdivision that we would meet would be the condo conversion style. And so that is something that the applicants are going to pursue as part of the final application to the board.
Okay, thanks. That was my only question.
So going back to the yield calculations, I guess. I forgot how many units are at 80 Main Street now?
There's 9 now.
9. And how many were justified in that first yield calculation?
By density, there would be 11 if all of the soils on site were amended. And we're proposing not to amend soils out way out in this area for 1 unit at this time. And so we're looking to just simply amend the soils in and around the structure, and that would get us our additional unit.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't understand when you were saying, okay, so you're looking at amending the soils on the west side of that drainage.
Yes, and there's a small area that would need to be amended on the east side.
Oh, there is, because
There
you don't get enough square footage or something like that?
That's right, that's right. Originally, we thought we had enough, and then we realized that South Berwick has a 25-foot buffer, and so we can't really amend the soils in that buffer.
So the amendment of the soils on the east side of the drainage, that doesn't serve any practical purpose, does it? In fact, it probably is a negative.
It's a hindrance to the applicant. We have to get a temporary permit. We have to go over there, do the work.
Right, and it doesn't, what the whole point of the soil thing is that you have to have on the entire lot, you have to have soils which support the construction. And so going over there just to amend the soils when that area is isolated from the rest of it, seems like we're playing a game of some sort.
Well, I mean, the alternative would be to propose construction on the opposite side and amend the soils on the entire site, which isn't something that they'd really like to do, but I mean, we could do that instead.
Is there, David, is there any, where does that, I'm sorry, I haven't researched it right now, Self. Where does that requirement sit in our zoning ordinances? Is that a zoning requirement, or is that something that we could consider modifying or waiving?
As far as the density
No, the
or
yeah,
the soils?
for the soils to support the density.
I'd need to pull that, Bill. I'm sorry, I don't have that at the
Yeah,
fingertips.
I'm just thinking, because it seems, amending the soils to make them more granular on the east side, yeah, that makes more stuff on this lot, but it doesn't affect the development of this house one bit.
Right.
So that's okay.
I see where you're going with this. It's kind of semantics, but I mean, if it is in the site plan regs and it's something the board would consider waiving, that's great.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would
it-
consider waiving it. I would consider waiving it because from a practical perspective, you're playing a numbers game. And now if it's in the zoning, then you're stuck with it, or you'd have to go to ZBA. But that'd be an interesting question to have, because I mean, you have to build a temporary crossing of the drainage. You have whatever environmental is associated with that. You're disturbing the slope on the other side. Whatever's there now gets disturbed by what you're putting on top of it. So I'd throw that out as a question. If you have to do it, then you have to do it. But if there's a way around it, it seems like that's really not serving any practical purpose. That's number one. Now the frontage for this unit is provided where? On Main Street?
Because the unit is congruent as part of a site plan, the unit itself does not need its own functional frontage.
Right, but the frontage for the site plan is on Main Street, right?
That's right. That's right.
So there's the frontage on Pleasant Street is insignificant. It's only that 40 or 50 feet, whatever it is.
Right.
So in essence, okay, I got it. So it's another unit tacked onto the approved site plan, and it's essentially a separate situation, separate piece of. It has no relationship to the 580 Main Street, other than it's on the same lot, obviously.
Right. And so we would propose that it be converted.
I'm sorry?
We would propose that it be converted itself so that there's really no, connection there in the future.
Right. And is this intended to be owned by the O'Neills? Is it going to be rented? Is it going to be a condo? Is it potentially going to be independently owned?
Yeah, that's what I mean by converted. It would be, we would propose a condo subdivision. So it could be, that unit could be sold separately and really not, integrated into the Amy's Lane, the remainder of the 80 Main Street project.
So if it's a condo, it could be owned by some other party than the O'Neills and still be part of the site plan?
Right.
Okay.
The thing that I mentioned in the report was potentially splitting that off now, that lot off now. It's going to function separately. Is that question going to be asked to the board at a later date? Okay, now we'd like to subdivide this because they don't want to be part of the association because, or the condo development. I don't know. If, for example, the roadway commissioner wanted the roadway to be extended to the property line, and when I emailed with Mr. Berry, we potentially could pick up some frontage on the lot itself, because when we put a hammerhead in there, for example, for turnaround, there may be an opportunity to create frontage. So rather than easement, that would be turned over as right. And it was just sort of spitballing. To me, it doesn't make sense to be part of the condo. And that question sooner or later, it might be 5 years from now or whatever, is going to be asked, well, why can't we split this up?
Yeah, I think,
And
go ahead, sorry.
yeah, and then, I mean, I think it's going to be asked at some point, why do we have to be part of the condo?
Part of the answer to that question might be the land that was required to support the 10 units at 80 Main Street. If that land that you would subdivide is part of the calculation for what was necessary at 80 Main Street, that might be a barrier to separating it off.
Right. And it very well could. I don't know if we could make a lot freestanding, but
Yeah.
you know, it would be a self-created hardship in the future. Would be my understanding if an owner suddenly said, well, geez, we own from outside wall to outside wall kind of thing, but we're part of the condo, but they're going to own their own stuff. I don't know. I just was trying to make it as clean as possible how we do it.
But if we look into it, I think we might find a barrier there because the entire lot was necessary
Right.
for the yield for 80 Main Street minus a little bit.
Right.
And so they 80 Main Street's relying on all this land for the 10 units that got approved then.
Right.
So
So we would propose that subdivision as part of this, that condo subdivision as part of this subdivision site, so the board could sort of see the entire picture. What we'll have is this structure will not just be the simple condo like you'd see in a condo development where you line them up all next to each other. There would be limited common area that would be associated with this, and then there would have to be a clear division in the documents as it relates to, you know, this individual really has nothing to do with Amy's Lane, and so they're really not going to have to share in that expense, and vice versa. You know, this driveway would not really be part of Amy's Lane, and therefore it's not going to be part of their expense either. So we know we have a considerable amount of work to do to sort of iron out all those details, and we'll bring that back to you in the full application.
okay, and so included in those details would be how Pleasant Street is dealt with, whether it's raised to some standard or not, where the turnaround would go for the town's use and other things.
Correct.
And so where is that an extension of Pleasant Street, and when does it become a driveway?
Right. Exactly.
Where those limits are.
Right, and that information was sent to the town's code officer, fire chief, and the roadway commissioner. So we'll have to come to some sort of, here's how this could lay out. What do you want, or how could we get there?
I would say,
Which is fine. They can work with Mr. Berry, or I can help work with that.
I think the positives of this are obvious. I mean, you're adding more housing in the village area. That's a good thing. That was good for 80 Main Street. You create a number of residential units right there in the developed area, and this would be an unusual but addition to that. So.
Yeah, and I think it helps clean up some ambiguity at the end of Pleasant Street currently, where there's probably a kind of a maintenance issue that they have to deal with every year. So we're happy to participate in that also.
As you go forward here, I guess we're looking at a sketch plan decision tonight, David?
Yeah, I mean, this is just modified slightly. The main issues that really I saw when we talked last was really just working out the Pleasant Street issue. I agreed that the documents that were submitted helped clear that up a whole lot. So now it's just a matter of, okay, physically, how do we have emergency service, for example, get in there?
I should know the answer to this question, but did we issue a sketch plan approval in December, or did we not do that?
Did not do that.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
Because we had a couple of outstanding questions. The board
Right.
Mhm.
So sounds like you would like it if we got sketch plans so you could officially start dealing with some of these issues.
Yes, please.
Bill,
Yes.
this is Perry.
Okay.
We'll be meeting up there with either with Chris or someone next week, Jay Redemarker and myself, and
Okay.
discuss the issues that you've discussed so far this evening.
Okay.
To the end of Pleasant Street.
Thanks. Yeah, because that's an issue, and when the original proposal came in, that put the housing units over in here on this area and had a major entrance for all those units off of Pleasant Street. I recall some blowback from Pleasant Street for a single unit. It may be entirely different, but so Chris, if we did that, our policy is, it's not in the regs, but people have agreed to do it since we've been doing this under the pandemic and otherwise, that you would identify all of the abutters to this location and just let them know that you are proceeding with this project with the planning board to make a preliminary application. So that we find that to be easier than, so they're not formally notified under the ordinance, but by agreement and constructively, you would mail notices to the abutters so that they're aware that a project's going on here. That would be okay for you?
Absolutely, not a
Great.
problem.
Yeah. Any other questions of the board? So if we move for sketch tonight, he can make formal application and start working out some of these issues.
I move we accept this sketch plan. Have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, good. Any discussion? Okay, that's great. I'll take the roll call vote because of the Zoom. Jeff Minahan,
Aye.
Hershey,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So great. Okay. Okay, I think you're good.
Great. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Yeah, thank you. Okay. The next is old business, the MSP 20009, the Providential LLC lot subdivision on Bennett Lot Road. We have suggested that there's only 3 of us here tonight. And we may or may not choose to take votes on this tonight. We can play that by ear. And if the applicant's concurrence, it might be more constructive to take formal action on this one way or another in some direction with a full board. But we can decide as a board to do that or not. But in the interim, I know that Brian Nielsen's here and he wanted to address some of the issues since last time, and whether we take action tonight or not remains to be determined.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So would you like me to kind of do a brief overview? Of
Yeah. Why don't you take an overview from where you guys are sitting and lay out the issues as you see them? That'd be very helpful.
Sure. I suppose for folks that are just joining us, so share my screen if that's all right.
Yes, please.
So good evening. My name is Brian Nielsen. I'm from Attar Engineering. I'm here representing Providential Equity Development in their project on Bennett Lot Road. So the project proposes a 5-lot cluster subdivision. It's located in the R4 and R5 districts. And so, as Mr. Chair said, we just kind of want to discuss and get some direction from the board. Got to the point last time where we had gotten approval for the conventional subdivision plan, but not the cluster subdivision plan. And we weren't extremely clear on what to do next, what part of the ordinance we're violating, if any. So I guess that's what I'd like to get a little more direction on tonight. So if we do need to come back with an updated application, I can know what to change. So the plans before you haven't been changed. It's the most recent submission at the end of March 30th.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. David, you had spent some time sort of summarizing where we're at, and maybe you could just walk through your memo or letter from earlier this week.
Okay.
And sort of crystallize what has been done and what hasn't been done so far.
All right. As you know, we've been working on this project since last September, and originally the project came in. The applicant wanted to do a cluster subdivision. To do a cluster, you basically the applicant has to show that they can accommodate X number of lots. Excuse me. In this case, it's 5. And so they looked at the traditional subdivision and they changed it. Originally, it was a dead end with 2 cul-de-sacs, if I recall, for the traditional. And that got modified quite some time ago to actually punch through the street. So you'd have a small, basically a through street from Bennett Lot Road up to Emery's Bridge. And you'd have a small cul-de-sac off that. Then they brought up the cluster subdivision. So at the last meeting, we looked at the plan that Brian has up in front of you now, and that's the traditional subdivision and 5 lots. When that came up, there were some wetland impacts. Those are illustrated like in the dark areas, and they each have tags on them. Probably the most controversial, obviously, is the northernmost one. There's a vernal pool that the roadway would go across. And at the last meeting, Attar explained that they believed they could get that permitting through the state, through DEP and IF&W, but they'd prefer to go with the cluster design. So that's kind of where we were at. So I don't know if Brian, if you could bring up the cluster plan in comparison. Okay, so this is the same piece of property, except in this case, the cul-de-sac went in, it didn't punch all the way through, so you would have a dead end. In this situation, the wetland that was, the vernal pool that was the northmost place, if you can show that on the plan, Brian, and hit your cursor on there. Yeah, it's right there. And with this design, they wouldn't put a roadway up and through there, so it'd be a dead end road. And since then, we also had looked at whether or not the unnamed stream that came through the property required setbacks from it and the associated wetlands. So thank you, Brian. The stream is on the right-hand side of your screen. And so we looked at that design. So at the last meeting, we did have a vote that was 3-1 in favor of the traditional subdivision being able to get 5 lots. And I think that's where we left it. So that brought us to sort of the cluster subdivision, the traditional we already had. So then with the cluster, we were at a discussion point of, is this a better design if the board wants the applicant to go with a cluster design? I believe the wording in the ordinance is it's the board's review that sort of determines which way the applicant goes. But we are still technically on the sketch plan review stage. So the applicant's trying to at least get to, okay, here's some preliminary plan we're going through, and we're kind of gone beyond where we should have, but there it is. So
the traditional subdivision, we didn't approve a traditional subdivision.
Correct.
We approved an outline, and there was a fair amount of detail included because we chased a lot of issues. But that was only for purposes of establishing a number of lots, which if the board chooses, could be moved to a cluster.
Correct.
And that's where we left it. As David said, the ordinance under the cluster subdivision, it's the planning board's decision, not the applicant's decision per se, to go with a cluster if the applicant is willing to go with a cluster, because the advantages that are out there to be considered by the planning board included less environmental impacts, more open space, less road, preservation of natural features, historic features, and that kind of stuff. So the case has been made that the cluster offers some of those advantages. So that's where we're at. And we dealt with the waterway over there on the east side. There was a question whether that was Gunkwit Brook and whether it needed to be have the resource protection limits on it. And we retained Mike Morse, the water resources specialist, and he determined with Joe that it was not a Gunkwit Brook and that the resource protection afforded to that feature, if it was a Gunkwit Brook, does not affect here. So the normal setbacks to wetlands applied there. So that if that had been the case, that could have had major impacts as to possibly the lots, but that was not the case. And we determined that a month ago or so. So I guess I'll lay it out there. Are there any other questions or comments from board members that are here? And we could choose to put off significantly more discussion or decision-making about going one way or the other till the full board's here, but that would be up to the board members here tonight. So Hershey, you got a comment or question?
Yeah, can we look at the traditional plan one more time? Brian, would you mind?
Can you see it all right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I can't quite tell where the property line is on the northern portion. I'm just wondering, is there a way to align the road so you completely miss is the road only in this, is there a right of way or an easement or just a?
Right, there's an existing right of way, so because of the existing lot line is here.
It's right there.
And then on the other side, it's just right there.
What happens though, right there, what happens?
Right here,
Yeah,
the end of the existing right of way.
right there.
Yeah.
So isn't there a way to align the road that you would miss the vernal pool?
Let's see, so the property kind of goes,
Oh, right there, sorry. Okay, I see where it is. Thanks. All right,
certainly love to.
yeah, I can't imagine. Okay. That's all I got.
Jeff, do you have any questions or comments at this time? I think I saw you shake your head.
Oh, actually, Bill, I'm sorry, Jeff,
Oh,
are you
I'm-
okay? Are you all
I'm
set?
good. I don't have anything right now.
Can we comment on some of the letters we received? Or are they not, if they're not entered in the public yet, do we have to wait?
No, you got them. You can talk about them.
So there was one that had questions around eastern cottontails and a Blandings turtle nesting site.
Sure.
And they had contacted, what is it, Inland Fish and Game themselves, right? IFN, right? NG?
Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Inland Fisheries, sorry, and Wildlife, God, Fish and Game, okay, you know what I mean. Okay. So did you have a chance to look at that, Brian? And
I did, yes, so.
what do you think?
So I heard it was the neighboring abutter, which since it is entered in the record, I believe it
Yeah,
was.
that's fine. You can call it out. That's
Sure.
fine.
And when I reached out to Derek Yorks, he said that the Blanding turtle's nest was in her driveway. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that must be pretty small. Now I'm looking at her driveway. It's quite large.
Okay.
So, just venturing a guess, just kind of going off where the wetlands are on our property is probably
Right.
region, but that's a guess. He said he went there and he helped to protect the nest to prevent predation. So typically, we'll start with the turtles and we'll move to the rabbits. Typically, if that were to happen, and on pretty much every one of these projects where we're going anywhere near a protected resource like a wetland or a vernal pool, we will contact IFNW, specifically Derek Yorks and Corey Stearns, because they're kind of the reptile specialist and the mammal specialist. And they would come out and do a survey and take a look at, potential habitat, and should they find a habitat, we've always been able to work with them on either doing a turtle crossing or in the form of a New England cottontail. We would do certain low-lying shrubs to help them have like a wildlife corridor of sorts. So
has he
that would be the
recently?
process if
has-
construction were to continue in this case.
So I'm sorry. So has he recently been there to take a look at this property though, to see if there's any impact at all, or is it?
I forget the year. I can bring up the email.
I think it was 2020, actually,
I
wasn't it?
think it was within the last 10 years, he's been to Deborah Ganser's property, but he
Okay.
didn't say anything about being at this property. I sent him the plans, but I haven't gotten a response back from him yet on that. I
Okay,
did
and
get a
I,
response back on Corey Stearns, the rabbit specialist. He said he'd taken a look at the property some time ago, and he said it's very unlikely that there were any cottontails out there.
okay.
So-
Can I sound, I hate to sound really stupid, but turtles,
all
like
the
the
time.
turtles on our property live in the pond behind our house, and they come up to nest on dry land
Mhm.
and then toddle back, and then the eggs hatch, and then the little guys end up back in the pond. So where would this Blandings turtle be living exactly, aside from nesting?
I
I mean, it would be the
I
vernal
think it's
pool,
less
or does it actually
restricted on
migrate
turtles
from
than
the
that, so-
stream? Sorry,
I'd have to talk to Derek on that one.
okay,
Anything like that, I always call him up, and he kindly comes all the way down from Bangor to educate us.
So Brian, if, as this project would go forward somehow, you would, once you get past a sketch plan, if we get there and you're focusing on a particular proposal,
Mhm.
you would bring IF and W in, right?
Absolutely. If you recall on our separate project, I know it's been a while since we've talked about it, but the Meadow Pond Estates project, the big time lapse from that one was primarily an IF and W situation with, I want to say it was either spotted turtles and black racer snakes, as well as potential New England cottontail habitat, and we had all three of those surveys done. So this is, it's as soon as we get past sketch plan, as we did with that one, we're working towards our engineering. We would have them come
So
out.
it's not, the question isn't that you won't do it and you don't, but you haven't done that work yet because you would do that in the next step. Is that right?
Of course, yeah.
thanks, Bill, that's good clarity for me, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so it's, in other projects, they'll do that earlier. The one we had last time, the Meadow Woods, they actually, no, that was not true. They did that after they had sketch. So
That's
that, once they had sketch, they went ahead and did all that detailed work with the natural resources. And I presume that's what we would do here. So the fact that we don't have answers to all those questions now is normal because that they would be pursued after the sketch plan's approved. I got that right?
That's right. And if I recall, going through the ordinance again today in preparation of the meeting, the board post sketch plan is well within, even if we weren't to do it, you could certainly require it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the question, where are we at, I think, is we are at the sketch plan portion. And we've determined that 5 lots are possible and could be transferred or moved onto the cluster concept. And I'm not sure we're ready to vote on that. And we might want to wait till the full board's present, up or down. So,
I move we table.
okay,
Second.
and I'll agree with that. I think this is better dealt with the 5 members of the board. But I think the parameters are well known. Please, if you haven't, I'm sure you have, I'd urge you to read David's letter carefully, and including the request that people be as specific as they can be in supporting whatever position they take. And the position has to be taken under the full understanding of the land use regulations that we're dealing with. Okay. Any other comment on this tonight?
Mr. Chair, if I may ask one question before the end.
Please.
There's been a good amount of talk on the comprehensive plan, and I understand it's pretty clear that it's talked about in the cluster subdivision ordinance. I just want to know if there are, after going through it, I was having difficulty finding anywhere where our cluster subdivision plan would violate the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
But if it does, I would like to know how. So if
Yeah, I
I need
under- I-
adjustments for the next
I under-
time,
Yeah, I understand your question, Brian, and I would, if board members are basing a position on that, I would ask that they be as specific as they can be as well, so we know what we're dealing with. And so that if a decision's made, the positions are known, so everybody can deal with it.
Certainly. I've been working on that, obviously since the last meeting, diving into the comprehensive plan a little bit. And I think also it's been a bit of a learning for me too as well, which has been good. I think for me, I've been feeling like the planning board is, tasked to look at the proposals and not only look at, like I've said, look at the town ordinances, but then look at what the comprehensive plan is. And in diving in that, some of the things that I've been seeing have been, and I'll try and be as, I have some things written down here. Hold on a second. I have, and again, it wasn't necessarily specific to our what is it called? Not the traditional and the, I think I've lost the word. I apologize. What'd you just say, Brian? What kind of?
the cluster subdivision?
The cluster, yes, sorry. I was
No problem. There's a lot of
couldn't
terms.
think of the word. Wasn't specific to the cluster subdivision. It is in my struggle has been in regards to how we as planning board make sure that we're looking at both, not just the ordinances. And I think it's a question as well to try and get some clarity for myself. If I look in the comprehensive plan on page, it's titled Land Use -8, number 11. It reads about in rural areas of town, lot sizes range from 2 to 3 acres with 200 to 300 feet of frontage required. And it continues on and says these are minimally larger lot sizes and frontage requirements in the rural zones. They have not led to the desired effect, demonstrating a need to consider larger future minimum lot sizes. Development in rurally zoned areas keeps occurring at a rate not consistent with the goals and strategies of the existing comprehensive plan. With that, as I look at it, and what I'm understanding is those same setbacks and whatnot are still the same as what the old comprehensive plan was. So that is one of the things, the questions that I'm having is, are we working to what the comprehensive plan is? Not necessarily the project, but are we as a planning board ensuring that we're working to the comprehensive plan? Then farther on land use -10 section D, it talks about the R5 Agamenticus Resource District, and it says to allow for low density housing while creating a contiguous area of important natural resource systems of scenic beauty and recreational opportunity. And then continues on to say to minimize and prevent those uses that could prove detrimental to the environment of the Mount Agamenticus area. And so in my thinking, I'm saying, while we've determined the properties not on a protected wetland, there's still wetlands which have been identified in the comprehensive plan as in the natural resources, page 6, in section 4E, it says wetlands are one of the most crucial natural resources Southborough has. So I'm seeing all these different things sort of pointing here and there and saying we need to protect it. So this is sort of what is helping to
Yeah, I'm
feed my questions, so you understand my thinking. I'll have this in writing, so that way I can at least have you guys be able to review it and see what I'm looking at. If I'm wrong in my thinking, I want to make sure it's pointed out so I can be a better planning board member. It continues on the comprehensive plan on natural resources -1, talking about making sure, just outlining that inappropriate development in environmentally sensitive areas could be costly to the entire town. And it says in the comprehensive plan, it says, for example, filling in wetlands or disrupting natural drainage patterns. There's a lot, obviously, in the natural resources, and I'll follow up this, like I said, with these specific sightings to have it clearer. But those are the things that I'm reading and I'm looking at, and I'm like, oh, am I doing my due diligence as a planning board to say, okay, this plan is working out okay, but are we looking at all the aspects that might not have been captured in our ordinances? Because we do know that there's not necessarily tightness that might be needed. So I don't know if that adds a little bit of clarity, and it's just sort of what my mind has been.
Thanks, Jeff. That's helpful. And so that sort of encapsulates some of the thinking here that's people are struggling with.
And I was prepared to mention some of these. I just didn't know how we wanted to go with the format. So that's why I didn't have anything ahead of time for you guys tonight.
If you choose, you work with David Galbraith, and if you have a not position statement, but a set of observations you want to share, put that out before next meeting, that's fine. That's entirely appropriate, as long as you don't talk to us about it first.
Yeah, I know that's the hard part. Is just trying to get, trying to get things. I don't want to do the wrong thing.
If you're working with staff, and David's our staff, you can have a conversation with David anytime you want. You can't have a conversation with other board members of the public.
Okay.
But you can have a conversation with David as our staff member anytime you want. And if you want to develop a statement, I would suggest you do it with David and get it out there, if that would be helpful. That makes sense, David?
Yeah.
Okay.
And hey, Jeff and David, if you guys are going to meet, could you include me? Because I would love to be included.
No, you can't. No, they can't.
No, we can't. Oh, because then we're having a meeting.
Right.
So I can. Okay, I'll talk to David separately. It's
There
fine.
you go. No, serious. It's not. It's a subtle point, but it's you and I can't talk about this outside.
Yep. No, I got it.
Bill,
Yes, sir.
David is not staff. He's a consultant working for us.
Yes. Okay, that's fine.
Consults either through you or through me or through the town council.
Well,
If you want something, write it up and we'll get it to him. He is not staff. We're overspent tremendously on this budget because we're taking side shots here.
excuse me, Perry. We have access to the planning people, which include,
SMPDC is the planning people.
right.
He is a member of SMPDC, staff to them, not to the planning board. Correct me if I'm wrong. We can talk about it another time. But we're going to probably have to shut down because we don't have funding. We're well in advance of where we should be.
Well, you can stop the cases coming to us, Perry, and stop the marijuana talk if you want.
Well,
I'm being facetious, but
the marijuana doesn't bother me. You're now into the comprehensive plan, which is a discussion point for the town council. And Jeff is bringing up comprehensive plan, but the only ordinances that we can follow is what is in the blue book, not in what is in the comprehensive plan.
to the specific point, Perry,
Yeah.
if a planning board member wants to get advice from the professional staff,
He's not staff.
professional people, call it whatever you want, Perry. He's the designated person for SMPDC.
So you're approving that? And you'll approve the over expenditures?
No, sir. No, sir. You tell us we're out of money, we're out of money, we'll stop doing this. We shouldn't be having this discussion in front of this group.
It's this group, it's gonna cost us more than what we're spending for attorneys for all of this stuff before we're done.
Yeah.
Follow the rules.
Do we have access to David Galbraith and Southern Maine Planning Commission or not?
Jeff, I'll take a look at what you're asking and we'll get it. I'll see whether David's the right person or whether it's somebody else to be looking at.
Okay.
He hasn't got anything written up.
We're just trying to get ahead here, Perry, and we're using I'll call it staff, the professional resources that have been made available to us. And
All right, if you believe strongly, Bill, that this will help, then I'll okay it. But I'm the person that's responsible for the expenditures here. And your
Well,
budget is borderline right now.
that would have been nice to know before we get into these detailed problematic cases, so.
Who-
I
we
didn't
don't
know.
even- The town council started discussion on the comprehensive plan last week.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about planning board members.
Jeff is talking about the comprehensive plan and how it fits with what we have.
And he's a planning board member struggling with how to think about this. And we have a plan in front of us and we have an application in front of us. And he's trying to figure out a way, and I'm trying to figure out a way how we can have most meaningful planning board participation possible. So I'll leave it there.
And if that's what you feel, then I'll allow it.
Thank you.
And I will get you a budget and where we stand and possibly be part of the conversation that I'm having with David and the SMPDC about how much time we're spending.
The work doesn't stop coming our way, Perry.
I understand that. It doesn't stop at this desk either. It keeps coming.
So we can either not serve the town or we can use the resources that we need to use to get them done.
All right, that's fine. You'll have to justify it, what you need.
No one's asked me a question to that end. I'd be glad to go through the numbers with you and the council to see what the issue is. This is the first I've ever heard of this problem. Okay. This is,
All right. Go ahead, Jeff. Do what you need to do, and Hershey, you also.
Thank you.
But we will be employing Mr. Galbraith to look at the comprehensive plan through the town council. Which is
we're spinning around here. We're just trying to deal with a particular application that's in front of us and have the planning board members be as responsive and responsible as they can. And that's what we're trying to pursue.
Okay.
Thank you. If there's budget issues, we should take them up separately, Barry. I had no idea this was a problem. No one has shared that with me yet. So.
Okay.
Okay.
David's aware of it.
Well, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm trying to run the planning board.
My apologies. My fault.
All right. Okay, so with that, I think we're done with this proposal for tonight, and we voted to table action until next time. And if I would urge everybody to get information on that so that we can hopefully make a reasoned direction when we have a full board. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate the time. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You have a hand up, Hershey? Nope. No, all right. Okay, now this is unfortunate because we have a couple of members missing here. We have on discussion the marijuana issues, the possible modification, the medical storefront ordinance that we started. And separately, the continued review of the town-sponsored proposal for marijuana cultivation. We did have a good meeting last week with Phil Saucier about the legal aspects of primarily the medical cultivation situation. I'm not sure where we want to take this tonight. It might be more productive. Well, no, I'll ask Kershey and Jeff to comment if they have any comments on what their takeaways were for you with our session with Phil last week. And if there's something worth throwing out there, throw it out there. And Kershey.
I appreciated that. I mean, his information was excellent. There was one thing that we never got clarity on, which is he mentioned that you could actually limit by number facilities. We've been told all along that's not true. So, and we asked for some clarity and got sidetracked, and I don't think we ever got an answer. So that was my one question.
Yeah.
But other than that, he made it very clear that we can, zone as we want, and we should, that it's required, and that, we could or could not then decide where it goes or eliminate entirely, and certainly control, how many by, once again, size and setbacks. So, I think it makes it really clear, and it's a pretty simple exercise at some point to figure out what, to me at least, a compromise would look like in terms of whether we do I1, I2, and call it a day.
Yeah.
So.
Jeff, you have something?
I think it answered a lot of, and just a lot of the gray areas. I thought it was good speaking with him. I didn't really have anything else after the fact that I came up with. I felt like I kind of used up all my brain power.
The big thing that I got out of it was all the stuff going around, and I didn't want to take on the marijuana law, and I've had to. So under medical situation, not adult, you can only grow if you're a caregiver or a registered caregiver. That's what I got. And you can only, but there are these situations where you can't do what's called a collective, but you can share resources if you're registered caregivers. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about shared resources for people who are legally growing. And right now there's no limit to that shared resource. So you could put 2 people together, you could put 30 people together. And that can be done under the medical cultivation situation. Now, he's strongly suggesting that we mop up the definition and settle on the definition of the medical cultivation thing, much like what was used on the moratorium, but there's a draft out there included in that. So we start with that, is what I got from him, and we make a definition, and it is what it is, and it takes the vagaries out of this thing, and then we take that use in table A and put it someplace. And the other thing I got out of this was you can, in that definition, put limits to scope. I asked that 4 times. He kept saying, yep, you can. So you could do a certain number of shared caregivers using a facility, or perhaps a square footage limit or whatever. So that we could, in our zoning of this thing, we can create limits to this thing. So that someone can't come in and make a mega situation for medical grow. The other thing that, and I'm backing up a little bit, but in terms of the definition, there's this vagary about agricultural uses, and there's enough of vagary that that he believes that if challenged and we don't have this ordinance, we could be forced to allow these shared facilities in any zone that allowed agricultural. He said to take that situation and resolve it would be to define it, zone it, and put limits on it. Is that pretty much what you guys got?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, I think we're probably going to want to go down that path, but I think probably a broader discussion and deeper discussion probably should wait for the full board, in my view, unless we have specific things we want to throw out there now.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think establish a basic direction which we can put some variations on, but a basic direction which I finally understood. And then we can revisit the medical storefront at the same time. So I'm suggesting that we take a few minutes tonight. If anybody has that's attending otherwise has any focused comments they'd like to offer, we can take them. But I think we will also table more in-depth discussion of this until we get the full board together next time. So with that, I'd invite anybody to make a comment. Go ahead, Hershey. You're not anybody.
No, let people talk. That's fine.
Yeah.
Nobody?
Okay. Perry, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Is what I just described pretty much how you understand this thing should unfold? Oh, you're muted.
What was the question?
If you were listening, how I described the situation, was that pretty much how you understand this thing to be? Maybe you weren't listening to me. That could be.
I was writing an email.
Okay.
Just ask the question directly.
All right. Yeah. No, the question was that the idea that we solve the various problems here by defining medical cultivation, putting whatever limits are on it that we choose to do it, so we understand exactly what is allowed and zone it for someplace so that it's not nebulously possible anywhere in town where agriculture is possible.
I would agree with what you just said.
Thank you, Perry. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Hershey.
So this is related, and I don't mean to create some awkwardness here, but I would like to know what's going on Ogunquit Road. I don't really understand if that was something that wasn't permitted and is illegal, and that the owner is hoping to have it be somehow, I don't know how you would grandfather in something that was illegal by then passing some ordinance, but as far as I understand, it might never be legal there. So I don't really understand why it's operating out there.
What are you talking about?
The one it's out on Ogunquit Road, right? The one that Eric.
We're in a lawsuit over that with one of the members that's in the audience here at the moment. I can't discuss it.
Ah, okay.
I know nothing about it, so.
That is not accurate. There is no lawsuit. That is incorrect.
You're spending dollars to an attorney and you're not to speak to us, only through the attorney.
Okay, then let's stay off.
Oh, so as a citizen, I can no longer speak to you?
I'm gonna say time out on this, gentlemen. And if we have focused conversations on the issues at hand, but not that particular case, I'd appreciate that.
So can I ask, as a planning board member and also just as a citizen, if I see things in town that seems to me,
that's a good question.
I'm trying to figure out how to say this, aren't up to code or shouldn't have been permitted, or why was that built there if it's not a use that's allowed? How do I find out about that? Like, who do I talk to about that? Do I go to Joe? Do I ask Joe and say, Joe, why is that there?
You go
What?
to Joe. And,
you go to Joe? Okay.
I've experienced that and learned very quickly that as a planning board member, you have no more or less power than any citizen of the town of South Berwick.
That's fine, but as a citizen, then
Joe is the first person to talk to.
All right.
Code enforcement officer. He's responsible for decisions on land use, and if you have questions remaining after talking to Joe, it's a judgment what you do after that. And Joe is the code enforcement officer, and he's the first point of contact with questions on anything.
Okay.
If you see someone building something you don't think it should be there, you see a sign going up you don't think should be there, you see some kind of activity that you don't think should be there, that's interesting. But and Joe is the person to run that question by, and Joe's very straightforward in his responses. He'll get back to you. I'm speaking for him since he's not here tonight.
Thank you.
Joe will be back Monday, Hershey, if you have some questions. Please.
No, that's, I just, I just want to understand the process and, it's not as if there isn't transparency. It's not like anybody's hiding anything, but it's also not as if like people don't have to put permits in their windows and I don't go check the permit list because that's, that's time consuming. So I'm just,
Interestingly, after we issue a permit, I learned early on in my planning board career that once we issue the permit, we're done.
right.
But
I'm not talking as a planning board member now. Now I just want to understand as a citizen.
I'm just saying, I said, well, geez, I saw something happen and that's not what we permitted. That's not our job. That's Joe's job.
Right.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, you could take him to ZBA or something, but.
Well, you can bring him to me because he works for me.
Well, that's true.
And if I'm not, the day I'm not valuable enough to be here, then someone will make that mention and I'll be on. That's just all there is to it. We want to work with everybody. We are under such stress now, as Bill mentioned earlier, that this marijuana thing has to come to a head at some point. Getting the attorney, the town council met with the attorney. They probably could have met in open session for the questions that were discussed because they were similar to the questions that you went over last week. The attorney said that we had to do something. We can limit it. We can do whatever we need to do. All along that line. But we can't, if we have 17 different opinions, trying to put wedges in between everything. The planning board needs to do its work. Town council needs to do its work. And we all need to be participating, which as much as sometimes that I may be a little outspoken, but I thank you for attending these meetings. And the best way is to gather information and then let us do it, but not to go around and around in a circle with the same stuff time after time. Jeff, your questions earlier were valid questions. My apologies to you and to the rest of the board.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Yeah, and also the other thing I'd add to Perry's comment is that in general, and I don't see any problem with our board, but at a point you got to move forward. You have to make a decision, up, down, sideways, not sideways, up or down, and let people react to it. They either go with it or they can object to it, and that's okay to object to it, but they can't object to something that's not a decision. You have to make a decision, and hopefully they'll go along with it and they'll work with it. But if they feel they need to object, they can do that, but they can't object unless they have a decision. So. Okay. I thought this was going to go much longer than it did, and it's probably because we don't have 5 members here, but there'll be hopefully 4 or 5 next time, because there was unique situations tonight for both these members. So.
Bill, I went down to the Pied Cow this week because they had 2 parking signs down there for Pied Cow customers.
On the street?
Manager and I pulled them out of the ground together. They were thankful. They want to be good citizens. They're trying to do their best where they can. The new sign, I'm glad to see that that's up there. It's no more the smoking caricature or whatever however you say that. So I think they want to be good neighbors and they want to know what's going on. So I've made an agreement with the manager down there that if there are any issues or any of you out there have any issues with that particular business, please let me know and I'll take it to them.
Great. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then if there's no other member comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and since Manley's not here, it has to come from somebody else.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll second.
Okay, second. So, and all in favor, raise your hand. We're done. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Bye, everyone.